When my skin starts to show me irritation, I know that something's out of balance and that I need to bring some awareness and some attention into caring for myself.
Welcome to the Healthy Skin Show with Jennifer Fugo, where we're flipping everything you've been told about your chronic skin issues upside down and connecting you with alternative solutions your dermatologist never told you about.
Welcome to episode number 54 of the Healthy Skin Show. Today we are going to talk about a topic that has yet to be covered on the Healthy Skin Show, and it's specific to perioral dermatitis. It's one of the most frustrating and irritating and honestly one of the most difficult skin issues for most people to encounter as practitioners, and it's also highly frustrating to those who live with it, because they try so many things and it doesn't act the way that other dermatitis issues or eczema does. So I thought I would bring on a guest who's had personal experience with it. She's a doctor and she started formulating her own products based around her experience with perioral dermatitis. Let's dive straight into that interview because I think you guys are going to love this conversation. I certainly did. So let's dive in. Hi, everyone. I have a very special guest with me whom I am thrilled that she is here. And one reason why is that we have not talked about this topic yet. Stay tuned. We'll talk about it in a moment. But first, I want to introduce my guest. Her name is Dr. Sarah Villafranco, and she is a noisy advocate for cultivating joy and health in everyday life. During 10 years practicing emergency medicine, she observed the broad spectrum of human wellness and illness and wanted to empower her patients more in their daily choices. With her line of luxury natural skincare, she hopes to increase the quality of the ingredients people are absorbing through their skin and employs a less is more approach to conditions such as dermatitis, eczema, and acne. She is invested in shifting the conversation from beauty to skin health and to discussing the privilege of aging in a positive light. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
So we are going to talk today about perioral dermatitis, which I will be honest, seems to be one of the trickiest of dermatitis out there for some reason.
It's like there's so many tongue twisters in this conversation. I call it PD for short. So if you want to do that, I it eases things.
Everyone's in the know. So why don't you talk a little bit about PD and your personal, because you've actually gone through this. Can you share a little bit about what it is and your experience?
Absolutely. So perioral means around the mouth. And dermatitis just means angry skin. It's a very broad catch-all term. And so really what it looks like is a mix of acne and eczema. So it can have the bumps that often come with acne and the redness, and it can have the dry, flaky tightness that comes with eczema. And the places that you see it are in the folds of your nose, sort of the sides of your nose, and then it can sort of track down the smile lines and then around the chin. And so it feels terrible. Some people refer to it as muzzle rash, which I think is particularly cruel because you're already feeling bad about yourself, and now you've just been referenced by a dermatologist as having muzzle rash. So that is sort of what it looks like. It can look red, it can look bumpy, it can look quite painful. I've had people send me pictures that just make my heart hurt because I know that they've been locked in their apartment for weeks, unable to face the world with their face in such a state of distress.
And does this affect, I mean, I'm familiar with women having it because I've had female clients with it, but do you know, does it affect kids or teenagers, or does it also affect men?
Yeah, so I see it a lot in young kids who are on steroid inhalers for asthma. I see it a lot in men, and strangely, I have a pretty big population of people who are, 60 and up who are experiencing dermatitis. And we can go into the various causes for it, but Because the condition is caused by different factors for every single person who has it, it really can affect a huge, broad range of people.
Mm. And since you did have it, before we go into what are some of the reasons why, what was your experience with it briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I do have it. It's not a past tense thing, and it rarely is a past tense thing. So people who have it will be able to heal themselves and be able to diminish the symptoms to the point that they're no longer visible or noticeable. Even, when it's good, even to myself, I don't notice it. But if I misbehave, or if I'm hugely stressed, or if there is some sort of trigger for me or for anyone else who has PD, it's going to come back. And for that, in many ways, I'm grateful. I think of PD as my health barometer. When my skin starts to show me irritation, I know that something's out of balance and that I need to bring some awareness and some attention into caring for myself. So I first noticed it when I was 36. I'm now 45 for a few more weeks. And when I was 36, I started seeing these bumps, mostly around the folds of my nose. And then it sort of spread to my chin. And it was never horrible. So I was never one of those extreme cases, but it was pretty constant. And it was red and tight and irritated and dry. And I felt like everything I put on it made it worse. And at the time, I was in transition from, I was thinking about leaving the emergency room to do something else with my life. And I wasn't quite sure what that was. But I was fresh out of a soap making class that had fired me up like right to my core. I was so excited about making soap. So then I was sort of playing with a lot of natural ingredients. And I tried a bunch of different products on my face, and most of them made things worse. And eventually that process led me to develop, some products a few years later that really helped my condition. But, I think, let's see, I had my second daughter when I was 33. My mother died that same year. So it was a pretty stressful stretch for me. And then I was sort of like evaluating what medicine meant to me and how I wanted to practice it. So it was a pretty turbulent period in my life. And I would say that I was going through some hormonal shifts and some stress shifts that probably, added up with a few other things to create the condition in me personally.
Mm. Yeah. And so mentioning stress, and I'm sure too, if you're eating a really junk-filled standard American diet, that's probably not going to help either, because it can be very highly inflammatory. But what do you consider some of the leading causes of PD?
Dietarily or otherwise?
Just across the board. What can you rattle off for us? Because I'm sure people have looked around online, but they might be like, I don't know what this could be. And maybe there's something they haven't come across yet.
Yeah. And, Googling things is both a blessing and a curse, as you know. I mean, I've had
Yes.
many people say, email me at 3 a.m. saying I've been sitting here with a mask of powdered sugar and olive oil on my face for 3 hours. And I'm thinking that's just not a good idea. And they got it from Google. And so you just have to, you have to sort of curate your Google searching a little bit. So for me, the causes that I've seen really consistently are fluoride toothpaste. And a lot of people are using, more and more natural products, and even a product like Tom's, or there are a couple other natural brands, they have fluoride in them. And additionally, sodium lauryl or sodium laureth sulfate in anything. And by anything, I mean anything that foams. So sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium laureth sulfate, we'll call it SLS. SLS is used to create bubbles or foam. So it is in laundry detergent, even like 7th generation laundry detergent. It is in many toothpastes. It is in almost every shampoo out there, especially if you didn't buy it at Whole Foods. It is in, I think there's one more category where you see SLS sometimes. You see it in your dish soap as well. And so getting rid of SLS sort of throughout your entire household is a critical piece of healing from perioral dermatitis. So fluoride, SLS, stress is number 3, and it's involved in every single case of perioral dermatitis. Hormonal shifts. So a lot of times women will develop it when they're pregnant, immediately after pregnancy, when they stop nursing, or when they go through menopause. And so I see those spikes. And within that, a lot of women have symptoms of dermatitis more in the days before their cycle, and then it recedes a little bit afterwards. So those are sort of the top ones. There are certain foods and other things that can exacerbate it. So I think synthetic fragrance usually makes PD worse. Coffee, if you drink a ton of coffee, that can irritate it. And cinnamon can also irritate dermatitis.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's sort of depressing because a cup of coffee with a little cinnamon is one of my favorite treats. I try to see when my skin is happy.
Well, and one interesting thing that I noticed, and I've been told about PD, is that applying oils to the face can sometimes make it worse.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, PD wants water. That's what it wants. And it's tricky because you'll find I'm a doctor and I'm a brand founder, right? But you'll find other brand founders who will tell you, no, this oil is perfect for dermatitis. And I'm just here to tell you it's not true. And I don't know why. Like, I have done so much research to try to figure out why oils make this condition worse. And I can't figure it out, but it's true. And I, as a guinea pig, can speak from that angle too, because when I was developing osmia, I was testing all kinds of oils on my face because I wanted to know how they absorbed and how they penetrated, what they felt like on my skin. And I wanted to test everything before I created formulations. And my dermatitis just went bonkers with oil. And, one thing I've seen a lot of lately is, I'm sure you've seen it too, is the rage with oil cleansing.
Yes.
So many people oil cleanse every day and they're still having dermatitis. And it's really the oil cleansing that's keeping them in a state of aggravation. So it wants water. And that's why when I ended up developing the products that I developed have a higher percentage of water than a lot of skincare products do. Even like, for example, our Purely Simple face cream, most face creams are like maybe 65% water soluble ingredients, and ours is up closer to 78%, because the skin really, really wants to be hydrated, and oils don't hydrate.
It's interesting that this particular condition flies in the face of so many other things that you need to do for eczema even. It is almost like a beast in and of itself, and it's very frustrating. And I had one client who decided, and we talked about it, I'm not anti anything. I think what's worse is when we just say, right, we're taking all of these things off the table. I think there's a time and a place for modern medicine. And she ended up having to go with an antibiotic to see if they could finally resolve things. And that actually did help. So out of curiosity, did you ever have any experience taking an antibiotic for this, or just any thoughts on that route?
Yeah. So when you go see a dermatologist, most likely if you have perioral dermatitis, you'll leave the office with a prescription for oral antibiotics, for a topical antibiotic, and for a topical steroid cream. So those are the 3 things. Now, some dermatologists are wising up and understanding that topical steroids are one of the leading causes of perioral dermatitis. So that was a vicious cycle for many decades. And I think dermatology is finally catching up with that. So hopefully now they're going to send you home. They'll send you with both forms of antibiotics. And what I found is that the topical antibiotics made things worse. But if people do feel that they need to go the antibiotic route, I encourage them to do 4 to 6 weeks of oral antibiotics, systemic antibiotics. And, I'm not sure why that's the case either. I don't think that this condition has a bacterial etiology, but I do think that a lot of the antibiotics that are used for skin, usually they'll put you on one of the tetracycline drugs, and they have an anti-inflammatory effect that can sort of break the cycle in a way. So you can do, let's say a month of oral antibiotics. And while you're doing that, you're cleaning your house out of fluoride and SLS, and you're working on stress management, and you're making sure that your hormones are as balanced as they can be, and you're supporting yourself with an anti-inflammatory diet. It sort of gives you time to build up a support system that will help the results of the antibiotics endure.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't, if you take the antibiotics and then you go back to your Tide laundry detergent and McDonald's, like it just doesn't matter. Right. It's coming back.
And for those of you who are listening to this and you're having this like full stop gasp, like, oh my gosh, Jen is talking about antibiotics and how they might be helpful because you want to do all natural stuff. The whole thing that I've found and discovered is that sometimes we have to keep all the cards on the table, and it's not a disaster. It's not always going to be a disaster. Sometimes an antibiotic might be necessary in certain cases. Sometimes the antimicrobial herbs just aren't as effective, unfortunately. And so it's not to say that everyone has to choose that route, but I also want you guys to have all of the options in front of you to choose. That's why I think this is an important conversation to have, because PD is so aggravating and it's so difficult to get rid of. And I can understand with the feelings of shame and embarrassment and whatnot, just wanting to be normal.
I totally agree with that, Jen. I would just interject and say that, if it's unfortunate, but if more dermatologists knew that they could ask patients to stop using SLS and to stop using fluoride and to work actively on stress management and not to use oils on their skin, I think a lot of people could heal themselves without antibiotics with 2 to 4 weeks of behavioral changes. I think, I don't know, I bet half of them at least could go without. So I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not anti-antibiotics either. I think sometimes they are necessary, but I think that the lifestyle modifications are so critical to the long-term success of it that it's worth trying them for 2 to 3 weeks and seeing if, like, oh my goodness, look at this. I stopped oil cleansing and it's 50% improved over 3 days. And that happens. One
of the reasons I invited you here was because one of my clients who had PD found your black soap. Mm-hmm. She was like, have you heard of this? And I was like, no. I went and I read all these amazing reviews of people that have really helped. So can we talk a little bit about, I know that you spent a lot of time figuring out how to formulate products that will be helpful in this regard. So what are some of the things that you've found really help people, and maybe some ingredients that they should look for and whatnot? Because I know that with Osmia, you've got a really great line of incredible products that are based on all natural ingredients, and they don't have a lot of these things that you discussed in them, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty strict about ingredients, and I really went through and did my homework from a medical perspective, because like you said, I don't want to just not do something because it's trendy or, people are like, oh my gosh, no parabens. Well, okay, why? Like, let's research that exact question and figure out why should we really not use parabens, right? And for me, the answer on that one was a clear, no, we should not use parabens because they are proven to disrupt hormone cycles and shorten gestational age at birth. And I mean, they're like really objective measurements of the degree to which they disrupt the human hormone cycles, right? So that was a clear one. But other things, like palm kernel oil, for example, that's a really controversial topic in the skincare world. And people say, I'm never using palm. Well, it turns out if you can use like sustainably sourced palm kernel oil, that might actually be better for the world, because if you're sourcing it from places that don't have orangutan populations, you're actually supporting a culture and a community and jobs. And you're doing it with a crop that uses way less land than most other crops. So it's a question of sort of like really thinking through the issues. And so that's sort of just to say, like, that's how we as a company have gone through and selected our ingredients. What we use and what we don't use is by really deeply doing the homework on every ingredient. So for me, and strangely, the way that our black clay facial soap came about was not in a particularly scientific way at all. I remembered when I was growing up that my friend's mom used to use this Erno Laszlo soap. Do you remember that stuff?
Yes.
It's like this gorgeous black bar of soap, right? And it just looked so posh and like fancy. And I just remember watching her use it and thinking she's so elegant and luxurious. So I really started out to make a black bar of soap. And to do so, I grabbed some black clay and some Dead Sea mud. And I made this really lovely bar of soap. And we used organic coconut milk and avocado oil and, all kinds of yummy, nourishing oils for the skin and turned them into soap. So then I started using it. And for the first time in several years, saw my dermatitis start to recede. And I thought, okay, you're imagining this. And so I stopped using it and the symptoms came back. And then I started again and it started to recede again. And then I started passing it out to everyone I knew who might have a little whiff of dermatitis. Because if you look around, so many people have this condition. And more people started saying, wow, this is really helping. So then I sort of went back and looked at the ingredients to try to figure out why they might be helpful. And my best answer is that the Dead Sea mud is really powerful in terms of anti-inflammatory and some inherent antibiotic properties, basically. So it's very high in sulfur and minerals. Minerals are also present in the black clay. And what minerals do for the skin is essentially turn each skin cell from a raisin into a grape. They sort of plump the skin cells. And so that seems to be the effect that this soap has had. I think there are like 800 plus reviews on our website for this little bar of black magic. And I feel so lucky that I had the skin condition, developed the soap, figured out that it was helping me. And, I'm not out there making claims about it, but it is really wonderful how many people it has helped to sort of recover from this skin condition.
And actually, as we're talking about this too, I'm thinking somebody might say, wait, but my skin is also tight. And I want to moisturize, but now you're saying I can't use oils. So what would I use to moisturize?
So again, oils don't add moisture or they don't hydrate at all because HYDR means water. So unless you're using an oil on wet skin, it's not hydrating or moisturizing at all. It is softening and it is nourishing and it brings great ingredients to the skin. But unless you are providing water, it's not adding moisture at all. And to test this at home, you can apply like sunflower oil to one arm that's dry and then wet the other arm and apply some sunflower oil to that one and wait 10 minutes and feel the difference. The dry skin will you'll just be greasy. I'm going to be soft, but it's kind of greasy. But the one that you applied wet will be really velvety and smooth. So to moisturize, I recommend a light facial cream. So we make that, like I said, that purely simple face cream. That's what I made to try to soothe my skin. It was sort of my answer to Cetaphil without the mineral oil and petroleum. And, just a really simple ingredient list, nothing fancy, but really pure and with a very low percentage of essential oils so that even really sensitive skin can handle it.
Awesome. And that's a great point. I was thinking as we were discussing this, I'm like, it's good to know what you to wash your face with, but it's also important to know what to put on it afterwards. And the fact
Absolutely.
that you have options is a good thing to know, especially because now it's like, wait, everything I see now is plant oils, but I'm not supposed to use that. So what do I do?
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you've actually, it's really nice actually that you've had that experience personally with this to know that this stuff is helpful. It has been for you. And then you've gotten the feedback from so many people that it's also been helpful for them because PD again is just so complicated. It is a frustrating experience to go through. And I will also agree with you that the stress component is so important. And I think oftentimes people take it for granted and they just go, well, what if I do a massage a month? And I'm like, no, I don't think one massage a month is going to fix really chronic. Yeah. It's great. It's good start, but it's not the full fix. So I do think we should also say too, stress has got to be, you got to think about how you can start to better manage and deal with stress in your life. But I just want to thank you so much for being a guest today on the podcast. I hope that we can have you back sometime. And I want to encourage everyone to go over to your website and check out all of the products. And how can they find you?
Well, let's see. So the website is a great suggestion because especially if you have dermatitis or really, acne or eczema or any other skin condition you're struggling with, our blog is a real wealth of information. I write a lot of the articles there, and they're all backed by lots and lots of hours of research by me. So it's nice because you kind of get it's not exactly free medical advice, but it's close. And it's sort of, I have a pretty common sense approach to things too. I really am a bit like you, where it's like, we don't need to go like radically crazy in any direction. We can put together a good common sense plan that is doable and sustainable for you. So there, and then if you're an Instagrammer, definitely follow us on Instagram because you will see an occasional Osmia product, but more you will see beautiful blue Colorado skies and border collies and my daughters and nature and running and hiking and yoga and all kinds of fun stuff. So
yeah, it definitely is beautiful. And the website is osmiaorganics.com. And the Instagram handle is also Osmia Organics. So it's very easy to find you, but we'll put all of the links in the show notes. And if you guys decide that you want to give the products a try, if you sign up for their email list, you'll get 10% off. So it's a great opportunity to give things a test drive and see if they work for you. But I will tell you, I have really enjoyed, I have the recovery salt bath and I absolutely love it. So I've really appreciated getting to know your brand and just you and your story. And I also deeply appreciate you sharing your wisdom here with everyone, because again, this has been something that frustrates people to no end. And this was a great conversation. This was definitely awesome.
I'm here to chat anytime, and I so appreciate your straightforward approach to helping people toward their greatest health and happiness. And that's a real gift that you have, and they're lucky to be in your flock.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope we can have you back, Sarah.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much.
I hope that this information is really helpful for you. I know that there's not a lot of great content online about how to deal with perioral dermatitis, and I'm hoping to find other guests that will come on and speak not just about the nitty-gritty ins and outs of things, but also to have people who've resolved their own issues share their stories with you as well. If you happen to have a good guest to recommend for us to interview about perioral dermatitis, feel free, shoot me an email or leave us a comment in the comment section on this particular episode, and I'm happy to reach out. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I deeply appreciate it. Remember to rate and review the podcast, and don't forget to subscribe and share it with friends. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.